It's 7 p.m. on Saturday night. Do you know where your favorite player is? First pitch is next, guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 41 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pyatt. With me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sism. Will, I am. What's going on, buddy?
It's good to see your face. It's been a busy week, but 41 is going to be a lot of fun. Also, for the YouTube fans out there, I had to rock the Rays t-shirt for everybody who's not watching this, but they've been struggling. Had a rough month of July, but I got the Rays shirt on tonight, and here's to a good August for Tampa.
Dude, they need it. They need it. They're going to be okay. We're going to dive into the standings shortly, but before we do anything, we've had some breaking news this Saturday night, and then as soon as I went to hit record, you hop on MLB.com, and now it seems to be up in the air. If you're listening now, it's probably already been figured out, but here we go. Max Scherzer, okay, 24 hours ago, he went on an interview and said, we're going to talk about it with the brass in the New York, the Mets front office. They are saying he is going to the Texas Rangers. They have a deal worked out. It is just pending his okay. He has a full no-trade clause. Man, Will, what a way to start the night, buddy. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, man, it's when I first heard, you actually texted me and it said Max to the Rangers if if he approves it, and I got to thinking about it, and I was thinking about it, and I really believe that, obviously if this ends up going through, I feel like this is a win-win-win.
Yeah.
I feel like this is really good for the Rangers. They get potentially a game one starter, assuming they get to the playoffs, a guy that's proven. Obviously he's up there in age, but he can still get it done. The Mets get rid of at least part of his contract. I don't know what the details are going to be there with the contract, but
Sure.
At least they kind of somewhat get that off their books and are able to kind of move forward. I think the Mets are starting to realize, man, this just ain't our year.
Sure.
And I think moving into next year for the Mets, at least they have the potential to get that rotation a little bit younger, which is, I think, going to be really important for them to figure out moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think this is a win for everybody. Obviously, we'll see kind of what the haul of prospect looks like going to New York. I know you've got a little bit of info on that, Cody, but
Yes, sir.
but I really like this deal for both teams. I think it's good for the Mets to kind of cut ties right now, and I think it will really benefit Texas, assuming they get to the postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you on this, man. We'll see, though. News is funneling in as we're speaking currently. I just got a tweet from Mark Feinstein. Said Max hasn't waived the no-trade clause, so as of right now, it's not happening. Things can change, of course, so this saga is far from over. I think in the next 12 hours, we are going to get some wild news on this. I'm with you. The big prospect that is being kicked around is the Rangers' number 3 prospect, and Luis Angel Acuna, which is the younger brother of Ronald Acuna Jr. I know we've heard of him. He's going to win the MVP this year in the National League.
I think he's pretty good.
I think he's pretty good. So, you know what they always say, like the older brother, he was solid, but, man, you got to see this guy's younger brother. I mean, look out for this guy. There's so many moving parts to this deal. When you sign the contract last offseason, if you're the Mets, you think, you're creating a window. It's a small window, but here we go. We're going to go with this guy named Max Scherzer. And then the following offseason, you bring in Justin Verlander. You got to be feeling pretty good. This is unbelievable the way this is kind of coming to be. Last night, all over Twitter, it was saying Justin Verlander was potentially on the move.
Yeah.
And they were saying it's either going to be Houston or Texas. So this deal goes down. I would say the Rangers are probably not getting both of them. That would be absolutely nutty. And it's kind of like, okay, Astros, it's your move. But man, I think there's so much money on the table here. I mean, he's getting $43 million AAV. That's a potential hang-up here. How much money is Texas going to have to foot here? If is New York going to take most of it? We know Steve Cohen has said that he doesn't have a problem doing that if he can get better prospects. So it's just wild, man. I think, we had like our 100 percentile. The Mets are going to win the World Series. This really wasn't on my bingo card. It's got to be tough to be a Mets fan right now, especially after last year when you win 100 games, but you lose the division in a tiebreaker with the Braves, getting swept in the last season series that you guys played against one another. We'll see, but man, what a turn of events here this evening, man.
I think the biggest thing if you're a Mets fan is obviously this year has not gone according to anybody's plan. But here's the thing, like when you really take a step back, the Mets aren't really that far away, I don't think. Here's the thing. I mean, if you're a Mets fan, here's the good things. Edwin Diaz is going to be back next year.
Yep.
Arguably the best closer in baseball. That will fix a lot of things just right then and there. Then, as I said, if this Scherzer thing goes through, and we'll see what happens with Verlander, but the benefit to moving one or both of those guys is, like I said, you're able to spend this offseason, and Steve Cohen's going to spend money. We know that.
No doubt.
He's going to be able to get that rotation a lot younger, potentially, which I think is much needed. We've talked about Diaz being in the back end of that bullpen is going to fix a lot of issues there. And then if they can add maybe one more impact bat, obviously a priority is probably going to be figuring out how to re-sign Pete Alonso. But here's the thing. I don't think the Mets are that far away. Obviously, you've got the Braves in that division, which is tough. But with the Mets' spending capability, I think next year they could be totally fine. So this is just kind of look at it as kind of a blip in the radar as far as the season has gone, and look for them to just retool going into next year. Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, and we'll close the book on this for right now. They have a great young core. Everything you're saying can totally pan out. They have Nimmo on the books for a while. Francisco Lindor, he needs to turn it around, but he'll be a New York Met as long as they don't move him. Like you said, signing Pete. They signed McNeil to a long-term deal last offseason. He's had a down year. And then you have the youngsters like Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez. So those guys have come out and looked really, really good. I think if you just looked at those two guys' numbers and said this is what they are, I don't think anybody would have the Mets 17 games out of first. So it's going to be interesting anytime you have a owner who's willing to spend this much money. Dude, you just never know. Anything can happen, absolutely anything. So that's our breaking news, guys. We're going to move on to Where Do We Stand, kind of our regular scheduled programming. Let's start off with the American League East. Baltimore Orioles, what a run this team is on right now. They're 63-40, a game and a half up on Tampa Bay, who is 63-43. 5 games back at first place. The Toronto Blue Jays, 59-46. The hottest team in baseball is the cap that I've done. And the Boston Red Sox, 56-47, 7 games back at first. And then the last place Yankees, that's right where I need them to be, 54-49. In the Central, more of the same. Minnesota 54-51. They're a game and a half up on Cleveland, 52-52. If that isn't 2023 in a nutshell for the Central, I don't know what is. You got the Detroit Tigers, 11 games under 500, 7 games back at first. You got the White Sox and Kansas City. Next topic, let's hit the West. Texas Rangers potentially adding a stud ace to their staff. 60-44, 2 games up on the Houston Astros, 58-46. Then 6.5 games back, you have Seattle at 53-50. The LA Angels going all in with Shohei. We're going to talk about it, 54-51. And Oakland. What do you got on the American League, my man?
I mean, I would say, in the East, kudos to Baltimore. Baltimore's still playing really good baseball. They've been doing that all year. And now that Tampa's had a rough month, Baltimore's capitalized on it. And it'll be interesting to see what all the East teams do at the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, the Red Sox are hot, so they might be buyers as well. We'll see what they do.
Yep.
So, in New York, they're getting Judge back, so let's see, right? So it's all on the table in the East. All of those teams are more than capable of making a playoff push. They're going to get a lot of teams in, obviously. Central, it's more of the same. I mean, this is Cleveland or Minnesota. It's a one-bid league. Whoever wins the division. And it's too close to call, as it's been for really all season. Neither one of those teams are great. So we'll see what happens with those two. What's crazy is I could make an argument for both of those to be sellers at the trade deadline, and they still might win the division, which is just kind of crazy. But and then out west, it's Houston and Texas. Dude. I mean, you talk about a heavyweight fight.
Yeah.
Those two teams, along with those teams in the East, man, those are some really good teams. And you know what? I'm kind of hard on the Angels, but you know what? I can't fault them for, essentially going all in on this year. Who knows what's going to happen with Ohtani at the end of the year? I don't even know if they know.
Yeah.
But I feel like at this point, their best shot, or at least they think, is to keep him. And if they can make a playoff push and show him that, hey, we're going to go all in to try to make this work, maybe this is like their best sales pitch to him to stay and re-sign.
Sure.
So we'll see, man. A lot of really good teams in the AL, though.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it now, and I think we've talked about it off air. I feel like the Angels kind of overplayed their hand. It's a common thing in poker when you have a good hand and you bet too much or you don't bet enough. To me, if you make this move a year from now, you either trade him or say, no, we're going to give up prospects to make our team better. That makes more sense to me, right? If you trade him and you have a year and a half of control to the team that's going to receive him, you're looking at a much bigger package, like a Juan Soto-esque package for this guy. They wait until you're essentially getting a rental deal. That had to be it, right? I mean, they're not going to trade him for a team's 12th best prospect. They're just not going to do it. It's not worth it. I mean, there's not a prospect walking around that they were getting offered because it was so quick to me. They just came out and said, nope, he's off the market. And then they pivoted to what we're going to talk about later. They added a big name free agent, a big name pitcher. Put you on the board in our trade deadline draft.
That's
Stay
true.
tuned. We're going to talk about that, guys. It's not looking too good for CP over here. We'll see. To me, I kind of wish they would have went all in a year earlier. We'll see. I don't know, but yeah. What are your thoughts on the whole Shohei thing, real quick, before we move on to the NL?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we could spend a whole episode on this, but I mean, I've kind of said it for the last few weeks. Like, I wanted to see the Angels go all in one way or the other. Yeah. I mean, if it were me, I would have probably said to trade and see what you can get for him. But you're right. I mean, apparently the offers weren't anywhere close to what they were looking for. So, I applaud them for at least trying to go all in if they are going to keep him, because you can't just do like 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing when you got a guy like this who can walk at the end of the year. So we'll see what happens. I still don't think that team's good enough, even with Shohei. With all of the really good teams in the AL. I mean, you're talking about, even if they did make the playoffs, you got to go through either Houston or Texas out of the West. You got to go through Tampa, Baltimore, Boston, Toronto, any of those out of the East, and I just don't see it. I just don't think they've got enough.
Sure.
But hey, I applaud them for at least making a run at it, and maybe this gives them a little bit better shot of re-signing him. I think that's the ultimate goal in this.
Yeah, I think Artie Moreno just doesn't want to be known as the owner who let Shohei go or traded him. Dude, they made a trade for Giolito. We'll talk about it later. They had the 29th best farm system in Major League Baseball.
Right.
Now they're dead last. This is, you can you can go all in this year. They are not.
They're
gonna
in purgatory if they lose them, though. I mean, they're in big
sure.
trouble.
Yeah, and I will be surprised. I will be really surprised if they're gonna. I mean, it's gonna be wild, dude.
And this is a conversation for another day. But obviously, this is all hypothetical. But if they do end up losing Shohei because he signed somewhere else in the offseason, I think you have to take a long, hard look at what are you going to do with Mike Trout. Yeah. Because, I mean, that team, even with Shohei and Trout, hasn't been good enough to make the postseason. Yep. You take away Shohei and Trout starting to get injured more and more and even showing a little bit of signs of decline earlier this year. I mean, I think, man, they're going to have some real hard conversations if that ends up happening.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, we got to move on to the NL, but when you look at the Angels, this isn't a team that hasn't tried to make moves. They signed Rendon. They signed Josh Hamilton a few years ago. There's bats I'm missing. It just hasn't panned out for them. It's really wild. Let's move on to the National League here, Will. And it starts with the hot Atlanta Braves, dude. They just keep doing their thing. 65-36 atop the National League East. They're 10 games up on the second-place team, the Philadelphia Phillies, who are battling back, and they are in the playoff hunt. Well, they're a half game up in a wild card spot, so that's pretty awesome. Miami, a game back of the Phillies at 56-49. Then you got the Mets, who we're looking at potentially an all-out yard sale, 49-54, 17 games back at first, and then Washington at 43-61. In the Central, boy, this race just keeps getting better and better. You got Milwaukee 57-47, half game back. Those Cincinnati Reds, man, they kind of cooled off, but they have come back with a vengeance. So we'll see if they make a move. Oh man, the next 4 days are going to be an awful lot of fun. 57-48. In third place, this is the team that's sinking my trade deadline draft right now. I don't think they've lost since I picked 2 players to get traded out of my 4. They are back over 500 at 52-51. The Chicago Cubs are 4.5 games out of first place. St. Louis at 46-59 at 11.5, and Pittsburgh is also at 11.5 out at 45-58. Dead last. Moving on, the West, the Dodgers up 58-44. The 3 games up on San Fran. San Fran and Arizona, they're a game apart, and they're both 3-7 in their last 10. So they've kind of fallen off since the All-Star break. You have San Diego in fourth place at 50-54. Are they going to make a move? They haven't traded anybody away that I know of currently. 9 games back at first, and then you have the Rockies 40-63. Dude, what about this National League?
Man, National League is, I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, I've said all along, I just don't see a team that can beat the Braves. I really don't. I think that the Braves are just going to have to, if you catch them in the postseason, you're just going to have to catch them when either they go ice cold for whatever reason, or if you just get insane pitching against them for, a 5 or 7 game series. I think that's your only chance. And I think that might affect some of these teams at the deadline. Like you look at the Braves and it's like, I mean, even if we made a move or two, are we still going to be able to really compete in a 7 game series with this team? But speaking of the divisions, I'm disappointed in Miami. I was hoping that they would be able to hang in there for a little bit with that pitching staff, but I don't know. They just don't have enough offense on a consistent basis, and we can hit on this all we want to, but I still don't love what they did with Yuri Perez. I think that affects, in some ways, I think that affects the morale in the clubhouse. The Phillies are starting to play better, but man, we talked this off air. They have got to get Trey Turner going, man. If Philly is a dangerous team, if you get them in the playoffs, if they've got all their pieces working, so if they can just get in, they've got a puncher's chance.
We haven't seen it yet, though. I mean, we have not seen them all go at the same time.
It's like they've got this sports car engine, but they're only hitting on 6 cylinders right now, but they're still hanging in there. So watch out for them. Let's see if they can kind of get everybody going. in the Central, it's really interesting. You said it. I think the Cubs might not sell.
Yeah.
They're only a few games out. Milwaukee and Cincinnati it's not like they're these juggernauts of a team yet. And so the Cubs may hang on to their pieces. And
9-1 in their last 10, dude. They're on a 7-game winning streak.
So we'll see. I mean, any of those three teams in the Central are pretty interesting. You could even sneak a wild card berth out of one of those two. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens there. And then out west, the Dodgers are starting to I don't know. Feels like the Dodgers are starting to separate themselves a little bit. Yeah. Obviously, they made a few moves already. They got Lance Lynn to kind of bolster the back end of the rotation. Joe Kelly's back to help with the bullpen. We'll see if they get Arenado. We'll talk about that right later. But the Dodgers feel like it's like, all right, it's time to step on the gas and put away the D-backs and, win another division. But San Diego, the Padres are going to be the team to watch at the deadline. I don't have a clue what they're going to do.
Sure.
But they're the team that kind of holds a lot of the cards at the trade deadline one way or the other.
Yep. Yeah, well, speaking of San Diego, we heard a lot about maybe a Snell, maybe a Hader.
Yeah.
Getting up out of there. Maybe Juan Soto. I mean, if you want to go real wild with it. But, dude, been pretty quiet so far. Like I said, we still got 3 days.
Yeah.
Right? August 1st? Yeah. So, dude, who knows? Who actually knows? It's going to be super exciting. Snell is like a pure rental. So that one doesn't not make sense to me. But it's just like, do those guys – there's a lot of alphas in that clubhouse, and I don't know that they're ever going to look at themselves in the mirror and say we can't do this.
Right.
6 games out of a wild card spot. I don't know. That's the beauty of the extra. The playoff changes. I want to hit on the Cubs, man, because they have just played a great brand of baseball recently, and it really harkens back to that team that won in 2016 with Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, Rizzo. You know the names. In 2021, these guys were all coming up on their contract years. It was looking like there's no way they're going to be able to pay them. I mean, we're talking Chicago's a pretty big market, but they've never historically spent a lot of money. And I remember a week before the deadline, like 10 days, they hit a West Coast trip. And I remember thinking, if they do well, they're gonna buy, and if they if they do bad, they're gonna sell. They went 1-9. I remember they played the Dodgers, L.A., and then maybe San Fran, and San Fran won 108 games that year. So I remember it being like a pretty tough run. They went 1-9, and they sold everybody. This is the reverse of that. Yeah. So my question now is like, are they going to buy? I believe in these guys. They have some proven winners on that team, and some guys have done it, and you mix it in with some young guys. So
yeah, I've said this whole time, I really like the direction the Cubs are going. Like,
no doubt.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, Justin Steele looks like, I'm not going to say he's just like a superstar yet. Mm-hmm. But he looks like a really, really good 1 or 2 option for them moving forward.
Oh yeah,
Marcus Stroman's pitched well. I know he's had a couple of rough starts lately, but he's been really good overall.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, the lineup, they can put up some runs, and it's kind of sneaky.
Yep.
Nico Horner's a really nice player.
Yep.
Ian Happ's solid. Seiya Suzuki's look better.
Belly's look
Dansby Swanson's a good player. He's streaky, but he's a good player.
Yep.
Christopher Morel. Man, I've been waiting for him to just fall off the mat, but I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I like a lot of the pieces the Cubs have got. They've got to address the bullpen. But, man, they're not that far away. They're a pretty good ball club.
Yeah. Nope. You're 100% correct, dude. And I don't know. Let's see what August and September looks like in Chicago. I would not be surprised if we're talking about them in October. Though.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked a lot of bad here. Let's get into some good, Will. Praise the Lord, dude. The sizzle worked. I was like 50-50. It's still loading. I don't know what's going on with our software over here in Pyatt Studios. I don't know what we're going to call it, but I don't know what's happening. We had issues last ep, but that went pretty well. Listen, we've talked a lot bad about the Mets, and there might be some more, but on your heat check player of the week, man, take it away. You have found a bright spot in that lineup.
Yeah, man. We're going to Queens here, and Pete Alonso, I think he's still waiting on that big contract for the Mets to back up the Brinks truck to his house, but this week will go a little ways towards that if he keeps it up. So my heat check player of the week is Pete Alonso. He's been really good this week. He's batting about 400, and something – I was looking at his stats for the week, and he's had 2 games this week to where he's hit 2 home runs and had 5 RBIs. So if you if you multiply that out over the course of 2 games, he's had 4 home runs and 10 RBIs in 2 games. So that is getting it done, if you ask me. So Pete Alonso is my player of the week.
I like it, dude. Listen, the average has fallen off a cliff. He hit 270 last year, and we were like, man, if he can tick up to 290, he's going to win MVP. That just didn't happen. He took the Muncie approach. He's hitting 220. It's a pretty tough watch. But when he's connecting, he's got 30 bombs, 73 RBIs, and he's been a bright spot for this team. And honestly, if other people clicked in that lineup like we thought they would, if a Marte went or a McNeil went, he'd probably have better counting stats, and it wouldn't look such of a eyesore in the average department. My guys, you're gonna get tired of hearing it, but he keeps doing insane stuff. It's like no way Shohei keeps doing his thing here. How can't we talk about him? He had doubleheader in Detroit. This guy's must-see TV. He starts the first game on the mound. Throws a one-game complete.
A one-hitter.
One-hitter complete game shutout, An hour and 20 minutes after that, he's batting to start the game. In the second game, hits the first of 2 home runs in the second game. It's unbelievable what this guy's doing. This is days after the Angels came out and said, we're not moving him, we're riding with this guy, and we're going to see what we can do. Dude, is this like the best day in baseball for a single player in the history of Major League Baseball?
I mean, I don't know, man. It's just unbelievable. I mean, we're just running out of adjectives to describe this guy. I mean, I saw something on Twitter. I thought it was really funny that like after this doubleheader that you're referring to with the one hitter and then the 2 home runs. Because it was the day after the Angels announced, hey, we're not trading him, you know? And somebody put on Twitter that the Angels have now activated Shohei God mode.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just, I was like, that's a perfect tweet right there because, I mean, we have literally never seen anything like it. And here's what's crazy about it is, with all due respect to everybody else on the Angels right now, you look at that Angels team and you're like, man, they don't really have much else.
No.
And he is literally carrying this team, both with his right arm and with that bat. And it is absolutely insane. I can't wait to see what contract is offered to him at the end of this year. That is going to be mind-blowing if he keeps this stuff up and stays healthy.
Yep. Dude, that was always the question with him. His first couple of years, you saw flashes, but he'd have some kind of injury that would take him out of the batter's box or out of or off the pitcher's mound. Dude, Phillies fans would hate us if we didn't mention it. I did a little Googling because I'm like, is this the best game in the history of MLB? Is this the best one-day performance, okay? What about Rick Wise, okay? 1971, June 23rd, 51 years ago. He fired a no-hitter against the Reds and hit 2 home runs as a pitcher. So that's the only guy. Okay? It's the only guy that maybe has a say. But in my lifetime, it's unbelievable. It's just like nothing surprises you with this guy anymore. And it's pretty dang cool. moving on, Will. Let's do it, dude. Let's hit what's on the grill with Will. And our big goal with this, there were a lot of different directions to go, but man, did the trades not just keep filing in. And in my mind, I said, hey, if we don't talk about them right now, we are just going to miss some of these little ones. I don't have every trade on here, but we're going to go a few at a time, and I want your thoughts on them because it is interesting. And like we talked about the last couple of weeks, this is going to shape the rest of the season, the playoff run down the stretch. So let's hit it. Starting off, Pierce Johnson to the Braves for a couple of prospects. They also got Taylor Hearn from the Rangers, so that was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Johnson, if you don't remember, everybody out here, I know Will knows this, but everybody out there listen, this is for Mom. Mom always texts me and says, I loved your episode, but I don't really know that much about baseball. Here you go, Mom. This guy was closing out games for the last place Rockies. ERA north of 5. It was right up against the 6 mark, and walks a lot of people, but we're going to see if he can get to Atlanta and help out. Already recorded a loss for the Braves, so that's a little tough. But, hey, sometimes you got to start low and build up. So that was the first trade that went down. Then, of course, Taylor Hearn. Kike back to L.A. From my Red Sox for a couple of mid-arm kind of prospect guys. Nothing super excited, but it's always interesting to have Kike back. We had a middling reliever swap. Marlins acquired Jorge Lopez for the Twins. So that's back-to-back years of Lopez getting moved in the off-season or in the mid-season for Dylan Floro, who's had some ups and downs this year. And then the Dodgers traded for another shortstop. They had Ahmed Rosario from the Guardians for Noah Syndergaard, who I believe is hurt. So I don't think he's going to pitch for Cleveland. I could be wrong on that. Those top four, kind of small, but any thoughts? Anything stick out to you?
I thought Pierce Johnson of the Braves was kind of underrated because the Braves really needed to address that bullpen because they've got some guys injured,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels like that's kind of their one Achilles heel, especially when you kind of fast forward to the postseason. They need to make sure that the bullpen is addressed and, get some healthy guys back there. I think Pierce Johnson getting out of Colorado will really help him because he was solid. He also was the setup guy a couple of years ago for San Diego on those teams. So I think that's an underrated move. Kike to the Dodgers, just kind of adding a nice piece to that lineup for them. So I expect him to perform well, back in familiar territory again in L.A., and the fans love him out there, by the way.
It's weird because Boston fans are, rejoicing that he's gone.
Yeah, and L.A. loves the guy.
They are so excited. I can't think of a trade that's went down that I felt like that.
So I think the Dodgers kind of know something about him there, and they really, really appreciate him probably more than, I guess, just about any other team does. So I expect that to really work out well for them. And I don't know, the Minnesota Miami deal was a little bit weird. It was almost like, hey, Minnesota, who do you have in the bullpen that you don't love? And it was almost the same question of the Marlins, and it's like, all right, let's swap and see if they can be better here, So anyways, the Ahmed Rosario trade, to sum it up, was interesting too. I think Cleveland was almost just trying to get rid of him because they know they're not going to re-sign him, and to almost just kind of go ahead and make some room for younger guys to start stepping up. So we'll see. I that's a right-handed bat that LA can certainly use. Gavin Lux being out for the year has kind of opened up that hole, at least for this year, and he's going to be, I guess, one of the pieces to kind of fill in.
Yep. No, I like it. It makes sense for both teams on the Guardian LA side. I think the Guardians, they have this guy Gabriel Arias who's 23, and they definitely like his glove. They think his bat can come along. LA, what makes sense to me is maybe getting a right-handed bat in there when there's a lefty on the mound. Then you put Mookie back in the outfield, get James Outman out of that lefty-lefty matchup. That's kind of what I was reading about, and it makes a lot of sense. So.
And they need help in the bullpen still, too. They've got to address that.
Oh, there's no doubt. Hey, and they might not be done. Speaking of the Dodgers, we'll touch on this real quick. Nothing's came down officially, but
Yeah.
There are rumors of Nolan Arenado going from the Cardinals to the Dodgers, and not a lot of prospects have been thrown in about what would come back to the Cardinals. But, dude, if you think about that, remember Nolan, he opted in to stay in St. Louis and took a pretty team-friendly deal. I want to say it's like 7 years, 190. I could be off a little bit on the numbers, but still, for his talent. So if that shuffles over there to L.A., that would be pretty wild. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
It would be really interesting. Obviously, it's all hypothetical right now, but here's the thing, man. The Dodgers are such an incredible organization because they obviously can go out and sign pretty much whoever they want because they've got so much payroll and have the ability to spend. But what's so impressive about the Dodgers is their farm system is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to, in this case, when the Cardinals may be sellers and might start entertaining trading Arenado for whatever reason, the Dodgers can step up with as good of a farm system as anybody and go get him. And obviously they can afford him. And so this would be a classic case of the rich getting richer.
Yeah.
It would definitely fill a hole that they have at third base. And, man, it honestly feels like a perfect fit to me, in my opinion.
Dude, it would be nuts. He's 32, so, I mean, obviously kind of walking out of his prime a little bit. But
so is Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman's in there, too,
good.
and he's amazing.
That's a great point, Will. He is, that's a great
Freddie
point.
Freeman looks like he's 25. I mean, he is showing zero signs of slowing down. He actually might be better than he's ever been.
Yeah,
and that's saying something. Like, he is so good, and Arenado has looked really good offensively this year, too.
Yep. Oddly enough, the glove's taken a step back, but he won like the Gold Glove like 10 years in a row. Throughout his career. Yeah, dude, that'd be pretty cool. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, moving on from one LA team to the next, as we just go through chronologically at these trades. Giolito to the Angels, Lucas Giolito, that is, from the White Sox. He and Renato Lopez came over for a couple of prospects, Kai Bush and Edgar Cuero. We talked about it. This is what it looks like when the Angels go all in. Obviously, Giolito, pure rental, and maybe the biggest name that was apt to go at this deadline. What do you like on that?
I don't know. I just like the like I was saying earlier. I like the fact that the Angels are at least giving this a go.
Yeah.
Man, if Giolito could just figure out that form from a couple of years ago to where it looked like, man, the light bulb has come on with this guy. He looks like a potential Cy Young candidate, with the White Sox after he had that. Because if you remember, he had that awful year or two in Washington.
Yep.
To where he was literally, like, I'm pretty sure he was literally the worst statistical pitcher when he kind of first came up. And then when with that year in the White Sox, it's like everything clicked, and it's like, all right, here we go. This is what we thought this guy could be. And then from there, it's like just something's been a little bit off.
Yes, sir.
And so, for his sake and for the Angels' sake, they really need him to figure out. All right, let's figure out what was going on a couple of years ago when I was so good.
Yeah.
And hopefully he can recapture that form because I mean. Aside from that 1 year in Chicago where he was that good, I think he's a solid pitcher, but I don't know that he's like a big difference maker.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but I do like the fact that the Angels are giving it a go.
Sure. I'm with you on that, dude. 3.85 ERA, 1.23 WHIP. They're going to pencil him in as the number 2 starter behind Shohei. I think those numbers play more to like a 3 or a 4 guy, but anything helps.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go into a playoff series with a Shohei, Giolito, Detmers, and a Sandoval, that's a pretty solid starting 4. So obviously with the Angels, we've talked about it. They still got to make it. They're still on the outside looking in. But, go for it. We like that. Last 4 trades that have went down officially, we have Carlos Santana to the Brewers. So that's finally the Brewers kind of add a stick. We've been talking about it for a long time. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the odder ones, you have David Robertson, the closer for the Mets, signed that 1-year deal, and he was the guy who's like, this guy's going to get moved to a contender if they don't play well for sure. Don't know how we didn't draft him in our trade deadline draft, dude. But what shocked me was the fact that it's going from the Mets to the Marlins. That's interdivision rivals. That's white flag to me written all over it. And then following that, you had Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly to the Dodgers. So a couple guys. Obviously, Joe Kelly going back to L.A., which is kind of fun. But Lance Lynn, maybe he can click in and get some of that Dodgers pixie dust, whatever they got going on the West Coast. And then last one, another reunion. You have Kendall Graveman going back to the Astros. So there's I'm still looking for them to pick up a starter, but this is a guy that can shorten the game for them. Maybe take the 7th or 8th inning, get it to Presley, who's been locked down this year. And Astros, dude, they just got Yordan back. Altuve came back. And this is a team that's raring to go. They need some arms, but they're looking good. Those 4 trades, what do you like?
Yeah, as far as the Brewers go with Carlos Santana, I think that feels more like I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. I mean, I think Carlos Santana is obviously way past his prime. Can he help a little bit in that lineup? Yes. But the Brewers have got to do more than just Carlos Santana. Like, they can't just don't give me, we went out and got Carlos Santana. Oh, we're good. Like, come on, Brewers. Like, please. I am begging you. You have Corbin Burns and you have Brandon Woodruff coming back in a few weeks. You have an incredible bullpen. Yelich looks good again. Please go out and get, 2 more bats. I beg you.
You know what bums me out?
This is your window, Brewers. This is your window. Go get another bat.
You know what bums me out is I think they'd be more likely to move Devin Williams than get another bat. And maybe that's what it takes is moving Devin Williams.
Maybe it does. If you go out and if you have to move Devin Williams and you get an impact bat that will actually help, okay, because you've got other guys in that bullpen, okay. But don't trade Devin Williams for 3 prospects that aren't going to help you right now.
Sure.
Because Brewers, I'm telling you, this is your window. Yeah. I understand the Braves are in the National League, but this is your window. So try and do something. Yeah. So anyways, I'm off my Brewers soapbox for the night.
They got swept by the Oakland A's, so they're not even a team.
I know, right? Why are we even talking about them? But but I tell you what, out of all those trades you mentioned, though, the weirdest one when I saw it flash on my TV the other night was David Robertson to the Marlins. I was just like, if somebody would have told me at the beginning of the year that David Robertson would be the closer and would actually be really effective for the Mets after Edwin Diaz got hurt.
Yeah.
And by the trade deadline, he would have gotten dealt to the Marlins. I would have said, what?
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Wait, what? And so I don't know. It just feels really weird that you've got the behemoth spending Mets trading their de facto closer to Miami.
Yep.
I was just like, this is just the story of the season right here. So we'll see what happens with the Marlins. I think the Marlins have bigger problems than just figuring out their closer right now.
Yeah.
And then, to sum it up, though, I think the Dodgers, I don't question the Dodgers. I don't question anything the Dodgers do now. And so, you know what? I expect Lance Lynn to be way better in Los Angeles than he was in Chicago. I don't expect him to look like the second coming of Justin Verlander, but I think he's going to be good for him. I think he'll be good at the back end of that rotation, help eat up some innings. They've had Joe Kelly before, so they obviously liked something there. And so, I don't question anything that they do. And Graveman going back to Houston, hey, I think it's a piece. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy that helps them or hurts them, but hey, it's another piece in the bullpen. But you're right. Houston needs to go out and find a starter, whether that's a big fish like Verlander or somebody else. Houston has got to get them another starter if they want to continue this run that they've been on.
Yeah, I feel like so many pieces have flown off the board already.
They have. I mean,
we're still waiting on a couple Tigers guys and Rodriguez and then Michael Arinton, who had a pretty solid start to the year, but honestly, I mean, his ERA's back up over 4, so I don't know. Dude, it's going to be wild. Guys, we're going to be talking a lot of trades, so I'm going to cut it off, but I guarantee you next week there's going to be a whole segment about it.
Yeah.
Similar to what's going on now. Because that was pretty much the grill. Look, book it. Next week, it's also going to be what's on the grill. So, moving on, Will, we wanted to dust off an oldie for you guys. And, we've been running through different segments trying to find our sweet spot with this show. Never wanted to retire this one for long, but it's just kind of how the years kind of played out. We have Who's on Fire on the Wire. We're going to dust this off because guess what? Playoffs are only like 8 weeks away. But even shorter around the corner is your trade deadlines. So if you're making moves, if you're doing like 1 for 2 trades, 2 for 3 trades, got to know who's out there on the wire to maybe supplement that move. So broke it down. I got 5 players for outfield, infield, and 5 pitchers to look at. I'm going to go 5 at a time, and I want to know Will's favorites. Here we go. Ready? You ready, Will?
I'm ready. This is exciting. I'm glad to have this segment back.
Dude, Will's always ready. Never not ready, so it doesn't have to get ready. Let's start outfield. Chaz McCormick. We went under 70%, guys. 68% rostered, a 278 average, 13 ding-dongs, 42 RBIs, 32 runs scored, and 11 steals for the Astros. Behind him, we got Riley Green, another guy, 68% rostered. What about this guy having a great year? 315 average, 7 home runs, 23 RBIs, 39 runs scored, 6 stolen bases. More young shortstops, Will. Jarren Duran, 67% rostered, 311 average, 6 home runs, 35 RBIs, 38 runs, 21 steals for my Red Sox. Mickey Moniak coming out of nowhere. How about left field, my goodness gracious? 57% rostered, 333 average, 11 home runs, 35 RBIs, 26 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, batting 4th for the Halos. And then, new guy on the block, had to put him on this list because maybe you haven't heard of him. Sal Frelick, going to be a superstar for the Brewers, 39% rostered, 417 average, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 5 runs. No steals yet, but they're coming. This dude's special. We've watched him. He was the sound for a while. We watched him play a game or two there, Will. Out of these 5, what gets you excited?
Yeah, I actually really like these 5 players. I mean, I think it shows you how deep outfield has become this year. We were a little bit kind of on the fence, if you remember, Cody, going into the year. We weren't quite sure, especially if you play in like a 4 or 5 outfielder league, how deep the position was going to be. We were afraid that it was kind of top-heavy. But, man, there's a lot of really good outfielders. I'm not saying that they're all superstars, but there's a lot of them out there that can really help your team. Fantasy-wise, that is. But to answer your question, I like a couple. I'll point a couple of these guys. Riley Green looks like he's starting to figure things out. He's been basically the talk of the Tigers over the last few years as far as prospects go, him and Torkelson.
No doubt.
And Riley Green looks like he has potential to be a really good player. I would love for him to start stealing some more bases. I feel like that's kind of the key to him going from good to very good to great in fantasy circles. But he's starting to figure it out at the plate, and I think he's a really good player that can help you right now. Mickey Moniak, for those of you guys who may not know him, he was actually the number 1 overall pick. I forget the year, but he was the number 1 overall pick for the Phillies several years ago. So anytime you see a guy who's the number 1 overall pick, talent is not the question.
No doubt.
And now he's actually getting opportunities with Trout being on the IL with with Los Angeles Angels. And man, the guy can hit.
No doubt.
Here's the thing. Strikeouts are a problem right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't expect the average to stay currently where it is, but he's a good player.
Yeah.
So he can certainly help you if you're looking for outfield help. And I will mention what you said about Sal Frelick. He's going to be a on-base machine when he starts getting more reps for the Brewers. He can help you right now as well. As you mentioned, he's got speed too, so stolen bases will come. Mm-hmm. And I really like his potential, especially over the next couple of years. And last but not least, Jarren Duran. The downside is he's a little bit of a platoon player. He sits a lot of games when the lefties are starting. Mm-hmm. But if you're okay with that, he's the one guy on this list that can really help you in stolen bases, which is a big deal in fantasy, as we know. So he's starting to figure it out as well. And like I said, the speed is kind of a difference maker with him as well.
Dude, quick and fast. I love talking Boston Red Sox prospects. You know, there's another one on this next list. Let's move on to infield.
I like him too.
Dude, I know you do. You picked him up, I think, in both leagues, maybe? I don't know, dude. He's the real deal. We're going to talk about one guy before him, though, and that is Ezekiel Duran. He's been on and off some of your rosters, Will. 66% roster for the Texas Rangers, 291 average, 13 home runs, 38 RBIs, 41 runs scored, 5 stolen bases. Tristan Casas. Learned how to say his name. Not Casas. Casas. We're back, baby doll. We did our homework this time. How about 53% roster to 253 average? That's come up. He was batting about 190 for the first 6 weeks of the year. So he's been on a tear. Got the Oppo pop going, just firsthand watching. 15 home runs, 38 RBIs, 45 runs scored. Not still in a ton of bases. Edward Julian, I talked about him last episode. He's 50% rostered, so flip a coin in your league. 302 average, 10 home runs, 18 RBIs, 29 runs scored, 2 stolen bases. Jamer Candelario, there we go, Will. We got through it. Never give up, guys. 46% rostered, 256 average, 16 home runs, 52 RBIs, 55 runs scored, 5 stolen bases. This is a guy who might get moved to a better team, and that'll help some counting stats. So keep him in mind. And then Wilmer Flores. This feels like a guy, I mean, what's it been, 8 years since he was found, tearing up in the dugout because he thought he was getting traded from New York?
Yeah.
He's doing it for San Francisco. You wonder, what are the names of the people leading the San Francisco team into second place in the West? This is one of them, and he's 41% rostered, 291 average, 13 home runs, 32 RBIs, 32 runs scored, no steals, but a lot of excitement here in the infield, Will. What do you like?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. I mean, all of these guys can potentially help your team. Here I'll just go through these really quick and tell you what I like about them. So, starting with Ezekiel Duran, I love his multi-position versatility. That's always helpful. He plays in a great lineup in Texas. And, again, he's a young guy, and it looks like he's figuring some things out. He's got a 290 batting average, hits for some power, steals a couple of bases. Again, he's not a superstar, but if he's like your first or second guy off the bench and he's eligible at all of those different positions like he is, he's a guy that you plug and play whenever you've got a guy getting a day off, or if you have an injury, he's a guy that you plug in and can help you. So he's a good guy to target if he's available. Tristan Casas, man, you said it. This guy's figuring it out too. He was a big-time, as you were very well aware, Cody, big-time prospect in the Red Sox farm system for a couple of years. They've given him a shot. He struggled out of the gates, but, man, he is starting to show why he was that big of a deal. My big thing on young guys like this, when they really start figuring it out, it's like, all right, when you face a really, really good major league pitcher, what do? Last night he faced Logan Webb, who's having a great season in San Francisco.
Yes, sir.
And he took him deep to straight center. And I was like, okay,
in San
here we go. In San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I think Tristan Casas is the guy to watch. How does he end this year? And going into next year, he's a guy that can be like, I'm not going to say like anything crazy, but he could be a kind of a fringe top 10 first baseman going into next year with some significant upside.
For sure.
Keep an eye on those of you guys who maybe play either for the first time this year and you're enjoying it, or if you play every year. Keep an eye on guys like him to end the year, because he's a guy that, depending on how he looks the rest of the year, he can really have some helium moving up a lot of draft boards going into 2024.
I like that, Will.
And then as far as these other guys really quick, Julian looks really good for Minnesota. I want to see if he can continue it as well, because he's at second base, which is, notoriously a weak position in fantasy.
For sure.
Candelario, you mentioned it. Let's see if he gets traded. And if he does get traded and he has an everyday role wherever that might be, he's a guy that can certainly help you, especially at third base.
Rumored to the Angels.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
And I think that would make perfect sense because of Rendon's injury. And then Flores, you said it. He's on a heater.
Yeah.
I mean, he is hot. He is really red hot. So if you're just looking for a guy who's red hot, couple of positions eligible, pick him up and enjoy the ride for as long as it'll last.
Yep, no doubt. I love it. We'll move on for time purposes here, Will, to the starting pitching. And I just realized I got a Red Sox on each one of these lists, and I'm not that mad about it.
Hey, there's a reason why they've won, like, dude, what is it?
16-5, best team in the last 21 games. I've been calling all along, dude. We're winning the World Series in 2023. I think 13-0 getting swept in the first week by the Rays scared me. No way, Jose. No, it did, and I'm very proud of the way they're playing. Let's see them keep it up. Let's hit some starting pitching here. Brian Bayo, 65% rostered, has looked really solid. Another young Red Sox, 7-6, a 3.66 ERA, a 1.21 WHIP, 82 Ks, and 96 innings pitched. Pretty dang solid. Tarek Skubal coming back from injury. He's 50% rostered, 1-1 with a 3.71 ERA, a WHIP 0.88. That's what I'm talking about. 23 Ks and 17 innings pitched. JP France, don't know where they come from, but this is what Houston does. They find this guy's 28, and this is his breakout year. 42% rostered, 6-3, a 2.87 ERA, 1.22 WHIP, 58 Ks and 84 innings. This is your guy right here, Will, and I want to know every reason why. Joel Payamps. Did I get the last name? I feel like I did.
Yeah.
There we go. 39% rostered, 4-1, 1.68 ERA, 0.87 WHIP, 55 Ks, and 48 innings. He's the lone reliever on this list. And the last guy, got a little creative with this one, did a little digging. Jameson Taillon had a terrible start to the year with the Cubs. He's 4-6 with a 5.75 ERA, a 1.4 WHIP. And you're like, Cody, why is this guy on the list? Well, in the last three starts, he has looked really solid. He was a former number 2 overall pick for Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So just like we talked about Mickey Moniak, this is a guy who's had pedigree. In the last three starts, 2-0 with a 1.86 ERA, 0.98 WHIP, 14 Ks, 19 innings. I'm not even saying go pick him up, but I'm saying keep an eye on him, because this is how you improve on the margins. This guy has another good start or two. You pick him up and he pitches this great to end out your season. That's the kind of stuff that can get you bumped into the playoffs. These 5 guys, Will, what do you got, my man?
Yeah, man. I mean, all of these guys can potentially help a team. Like if you're, struggling with some injuries and you need some more depth at the pitching spot, for sure. Brian Bayo, he's as you mentioned with the Red Sox, I mean, they've just got, again, this was one of their top prospects for a number of years. He's obviously had some ups and downs so far in the major leagues, but again, he's starting to, with more repetition, he's starting to figure it out, and he's looked really good for the most part. He's strung together a lot of really quality starts. The strikeout rate is not great, but it's good. It's not going to kill you. And so, yeah, I mean, this guy, if he's available in your league and you're struggling on the pitching side, there is no reason why this guy should be on waivers in 35% of leagues out there.
Yep.
So, yeah, don't hesitate to go grab him. He's playing on a hot team, and so that's always helpful too. As far as starting pitchers go, the one guy on this list that is so tempting to me is Scooble for Detroit.
Sure.
He will have some starts to where if you watch him, he's a lefty, throws hard, has a great slider. There's some starts where you watch him pitch and you're like, man, this guy could be a top 15 pitcher in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other starts and it's maddening.
Yeah.
There's some starts where he can't get hardly anybody out. And so I don't know. The upside is there. The stats look great. He is coming off of a significant injury, so I don't know what kind of his innings limit or, if they're going to stretch him out or what that's going to look like for the remainder of the year. I feel like Detroit's kind of figuring out, all right, what does this need to look like for 2024 and beyond with a guy like that? But nevertheless, if you get good Scooble, he's really good. So, if you kind of want to take a flyer on a guy with a ton of upside that's still on waivers out there, go grab him. And then as far as the other guys go, JP France, his big thing is he's got a great ERA. He's not going to have a ton of runs scored against him. The strikeout rate's just not great.
Solid mustache.
He does have a great mustache.
You can't not talk about the mustache.
Right. But he's obviously doing really well in Houston. Houston's a really good ball club, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
You mentioned it, Piamps for Milwaukee. Dude, I'm not going to lie. This guy, don't get me wrong, this guy does not have the stuff of Felix Bautista. Quite frankly, I don't know if anybody does other than Edwin Diaz.
Yeah.
But he reminds me a little bit of the way Felix Bautista came on last year, because last year at this time I had picked up a guy by the name of Felix Bautista, and I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And when I watched him pitch for Baltimore last year, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so good.
Yep.
And when he got the closer's job, he just kind of took it and run with it. Now, Piamps is a little bit different. He doesn't throw as hard. He's not 6'8" like Bautista is. But he does throw upper 90s fastball, has a really, really good slider, and has just microscopic numbers out of the Brewers bullpen as their primary setup guy. So if you play in a league with holds, he's your guy. Go grab him yesterday if you play in a holds league. I picked him up a couple of weeks ago, and he is money.
One point I want to make on him real quick before we move on. If it's saves only, maybe pick him up until Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because, guys, there hasn't been no talk about Devin Williams moving. It has come up in conversation, and this is the heir apparent to the closer role in Milwaukee. So, dude, just grab him. If you got a roster spot, grab him, and then see what the heck happens.
But he'll help you in every category other than saves right now. Like
this is true.
ERA is going to be great. His WHIP's going to be great. His strikeout rate is really good. So he'll help you in everything, especially if you've got a holds league. He is awesome.
Hey, Will, you want to hear something pretty helpful?
What is it?
It is confirmed. Max Scherzer to the Rangers.
All right. Let's go, Rangers.
Here's what we get. Mets are getting the infield prospect, Luis Angel Acuna, like we talked about.
Yep.
But here's what I want to bring up. The sticking point is what I'm reading right now. Sticking point is Scherzer wanted to be able to retain the ability to opt out of his 2024 player option, which is worth $43 million. So likely, I would imagine he stays opted in. I don't feel like he's going to opt out and get paid more than that, but who knows? But here's the number I wanted to throw your way. The Mets are paying all but $22 million of the rest of this deal.
Wow.
So you want to talk about the Rangers getting their guy and getting him at a discount. Basically, the Mets are on the hook for like $60 million, or maybe a little bit even more. I'm doing some turkey math late at night, so we had margaritas before we hit record. So don't expect me. I don't have a calculator on me, none of it. But here's the deal. That's amazing. Here we go, Rangers, dude. Let's see what Houston does as kind of a counter move. Dude, that's nuts. That's nuts.
Big. That's a big move for the Rangers, though. I mean, I think more than anything, obviously the play on the field tells the ultimate story, but that sends a message right now to everybody in the American League. The Rangers are already arguably one of the best teams in the American League.
Yep.
And a move like this, getting a guy like Max Scherzer, potential game one starter in that rotation, especially without DeGrom, that's a big-time move. And
DeGrom. Scherzer, teammates once again. Didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it's going to be up to the rest of those contenders, though. They need to do something to help kind of counteract that move a little bit, because that's big for the Rangers.
Dude, that's nuts, man. This is going to take a second to sink in. I mean, the Mets are done.
Yeah.
Speaking of making moves, it is time for the Roman Candle Pick to Click Player of the Week. Man, we are back. We took a week off for the All-Star break, and this is a nail biter. And I don't mean an overall score. It's 8-1. Will is currently up. I'm hoping that'll play into this. We went former MVP for these selections for our Week 16 picks. Will went with Christian Yelich, who went 7 for 21, a .333 average, hit 1 double, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, a .333. I've read that twice. That's how good that is. And a .915 OPS, okay? .915. Will can't not pick players having great weeks. It's unbelievable. I went with my namesake, Cody Bellinger. He went 6 for 19, a .316 average. No doubles, but he had 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and a .979 OPS. So, Will, we said last time we didn't think it was going to be this close. This might be closer.
Yeah.
Initially, what are your thoughts here?
Look, I'm good. I mean, both of them had great weeks, no doubt. So all of you guys listening out there, whichever way you might have gone, you couldn't have lost, because we both gave you 2 studs for the week.
Yeah.
But, for our little competition here, here's my thing. I would go, if I had to choose any of those stat lines, I would probably still opt for Cody Bellinger. And here's another thing.
Again.
Here's another thing. The Cubs are on a tear right now. Cody Bellinger's been probably their best all-around player as well. And so with the Cubs, I think you mentioned they're 9-1 in their last 10. Hey, I can't argue with that. He's actually carrying that team to some victories on the field. So yeah, I'm good with going Cody Bellinger on a slight edge this week.
Man, I appreciate that. Dude, just once I'd like to just absolutely spank you. I don't know it's going to happen, but we are back in the W column, and it feels good. Let's talk Week 17 picks, Will. Up 8-2. I'm still far in the distance, but I'm kind of there. You're kind of looking at your rear view, and it's there's Cody. I think that's a Red Sox hat I see back there. Tell me about the guy you're rolling with in Week 17.
Man, I'm going with a guy that's just been really, really impressive. We've talked a lot about the Reds over the past 2 months or month and a half on this on the show, and Ellie De La Cruz gets a lot of headlines, and it's very justified. But Matt McClain, I tell you what, man, I'm getting serious Dustin Pedroia vibes out of this guy.
I love it, dude.
Seriously, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but when you watch him hit, the guy just knows how to hit. Some guys, you just watch them. Bo Bichette comes to mind. Some guys just know how to hit. Matt McClain knows how to hit, and he is going to be a staple for years to come in that Reds lineup. Somewhere hitting 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there.
Yes, sir.
And I just really like him. I think he's going to be an incredible fantasy player for the foreseeable future. And for my pick this upcoming week, I'm going Matt McClain. The Reds need to continue winning a lot of games to keep up with Milwaukee and to fend off the Cubs in that division. And Matt McClain is going to have to be a huge part of what the Reds are trying to do for the rest of the year to try to secure a playoff spot.
I love it, dude. Yeah, I have him on several teams. I think upwards of 3. And he is just, dude, hits for a lot of average, has some pop, will steal a base or 2.
Yeah.
He's got second base eligibility now. I believe he just had shortstop before. So He is extremely helpful, and you see these guys come in, and if they can have a year like they had this year, next year, they're adding depth to the middle infield, which like we talked about, and I think we even mentioned it this episode, pretty weak. So this can be a late round guy that I honestly think he's going to go higher if he keeps rolling. I mean, there's no reason not to pick this guy.
I think at minimum is a mid-round guy already for 2024.
Dude, the position breakdowns are going to be nutty in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, I think, especially with him having second base eligibility now.
Yeah.
I mean, can we honestly name 6 better fantasy second basemen than him right now? I mean,
not currently.
I don't think that I can.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this guy, at minimum, is a mid-round pick in 2024. And, I mean, let's not forget, he also plays half of his games in Great American Ballpark. And that does not hurt.
Yep. Nope, you're exactly right. I went with a little bit more of a known name here, superstar Nolan Arenado. And the only reason why I picked him, and we ended up talking about it prior to, I wasn't sure if we were going to hit on it or not, but I'm so curious to see what this guy's going to do the next week, just because it's like, is this his last week in St. Louis? I'd say there's a pretty big piece of me that thinks he's not going anywhere, just because, like we talked about, that team-friendly contract. But, man, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I didn't think Max Scherzer was going anywhere, and he plays for Texas now. So he's trying to absorb all that in. I don't know. He started out slow. He's had a great second half of the first half, I guess, Will. And so I'm excited. I hope I can start a streak here. And, we'll see what happens. Feels good to be winning. I'm going to be super-duper puffing out the chest all week. I mean, that is the confidence I needed to get through this last week. Get through the heat in July, man.
It's true.
We still got the month of August, Will. Dude, before we get out of here, 41 in the books. Anything you want to tell the people?
Yeah, man, 41 is in the books. How crazy is that? But no, man, I mean, shout out to all the listeners. We appreciate all of you guys. I mean, I'm not going to speak for Cody, but this is a ton of fun. Yeah. I hope that we're able to kind of impart some knowledge, make it fun for everybody each and every week. And hopefully this is something that all of you guys look forward to coming out every week. I know we look forward to recording each weekend. And, just appreciate everybody who either watches on YouTube or listens on wherever you get podcasts. So we appreciate it for sure.
Dude, couldn't have said it better myself, Will. Guys, this was the appetizer because we are going to have 3 to 4
full course menu is next week.
Dude, book it. 42 trade deadline is on Tuesday. Man, one day I aspire to just go live during that. One day when this is our full-time gig, Will, and we could, that would be the best. We go to our company office. It's going to be great. Yeah. But, a couple guys can dream, no doubt. Guys, we appreciate you. Like Will said, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. If you're on the YouTube side, say hi, leave a comment. And, of course, if you're listening to us on the podcast, we always appreciate you guys as well. Have a great week. Good luck, guys. Trade deadline's coming up. If you have any questions about trades, man, Will is the guy to ask. Send him a tweet at WillSism. I'm at BTH_Cody. We really appreciate you guys. But until next time, thanks for listening to episode 41 of Bringing the Heat.